Hello and welcome in. My name is Aiden Shields. This is Shields Sports Talk episode 1. It's the sports show that absolutely nobody requested because I am a doofus and a moron, but here we are anyway. Wanted to talk about everything NFL Week 3. I watched a couple of games, namely Steelers-Browns, Texans-Bears, 49ers at the Broncos. Wanted to talk about the Jags-Chargers, and Packers-Bucks. So without any further ado, we're just going to hop right into it. So first things first, Steelers-Browns on Thursday Night Football. A little bit late here, but still going to share my thoughts on how the game went and everything like that. So first things first, though, Brownie the Elf is maybe the worst logo in the entire NFL. I don't know whose grand idea that was to bring that back from, 1950? But a rejected Keebler elf should not be anywhere near an NFL stadium. So that's pretty unfortunate. But good news here is that, Brownie the Elf, while being terrifying to look at, it's not the scariest thing in the NFL Browns facility. So, but I don't really want to talk about Deshaun Watson. Anyway, so tale of two teams. Essentially, I think personally these are essentially the same team, the Browns and the Steelers. I know you guys hate each other and everything, but you're the same franchise right now. I don't know what to tell you. You're both held back by your starting quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, and Jacoby Brissett, both of whom should be backups in the NFL. And both rosters have a quarterback, maybe not ready to play in Deshaun Watson's situation, but definitely quarterbacks sitting on the bench currently who are better for the franchise, for the team in terms of on-the-field play. That would be Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson, obviously. Neither of these two quarterbacks can stretch the ball vertically downfield, down the sidelines or down the seams. They just don't have the level of touch that you would expect from these two quarterbacks. There was a play on the Steelers side. Deontay Johnson gets an outside release. He's doing a go ball for, down the sideline, everything like that, and he's covered by Grant Delpit. And Delpit is in perfect coverage, in man-to-man coverage. He's hip-to-hip, running stride for stride with Deontay Johnson. He's not stacked over the top, and he's not in trail technique. He is literally step for step, stride for stride, running with Deontay Johnson. And Mitch Trubisky really only has two options to get this ball completed to Deontay Johnson. He can throw it high and outside and just kind of loft it over the shoulder for Deontay Johnson. It's going to be a tougher throw to make, but less timing really involved there. You just got to get it over Deontay Johnson's head, closer to the boundary, and hopefully, Grant Delpit can't swat that ball away. Or he can throw a dart to the back shoulder of Deontay Johnson, where Grant Delpit, because his back is to the quarterback, isn't going to have the reaction time needed to turn around and swat that ball away. Instead, what Mitch Trubisky does, because he doesn't have the physical gifts or the ability to push the ball vertically downfield, he throws a dart right at the back of Grant Delpit's head. What's Deontay Johnson supposed to do with that ball? The only way that he can make a play on that ball is to go through and over the top of Grant Delpit, which, of course, he does, and he doesn't make the catch because that's a very, very, very low percentage ball, and it's placed in a position where the cornerback has all of the leverage, all of the ability to knock the ball away, and he doesn't really have to do anything. His body is just in a natural position to shield the receiver from the ball. So, and that was really one of Mitch Trubisky's, maybe his only throw that went farther than 15, 20 yards down the field, and it didn't look great. And then on the Brown side of the ball, you got Jacoby Brissett, who also can't push the ball vertically downfield. You see him just dinking and dunking his way down the field to get the Browns into field goal range and field goal range and field goal range. And that's cool and that's great and everything because he's not turning the ball over and he's not the reason the Browns are going to win or lose a game. But that's not really what you need out of a quarterback, especially one who is filling in for a guy who's going to take over and hopefully make the playoff push for the Browns. Deshaun Watson comes back week 13, which means the Browns have to have a good enough record by week 13 in order for Deshaun to push the team over the hump and get to the playoffs. Right now, I don't really see that happening. They're going to play the Chargers 2 weeks from now, and it's really going to show how poorly the Browns are set up with Jacoby Brissett under center, because all they can do is dink and dunk down the field. You're going to have Derwin James locking up David Njoku, who's Jacoby Brissett's number 2 target. And you got J.C. Jackson covering Amari Cooper, who's really the only legitimate outside threat for the Browns. So, who's going to step up for the Browns? Is it going to be Anthony Schwartz? That doesn't feel good. Rookie David Bell also doesn't feel really good. You got DPJ. He's, on the roster. Austin Hooper is similarly on the roster. Neither of them are being utilized in any legitimate fashion through 3 weeks into the season. So, I got a lot of concerns there. And the Browns coaching staff knows and doesn't trust that Jacoby Brissett can push the ball downfield. The only deep ball that he threw all game, and it was a shitty throw too, was on an obvious running situation in a jumbo set off a play action, and he rolled out to his right. I mean, everything about this play screamed, we're running the ball, which is why the hard play action worked so well. And they ultimately did complete the pass. He booted out, and Amari Cooper's running this deep cross, and he throws the ball high and inside on Amari Cooper, so he has to stop, adjust, leap for the ball. He gets caught in the air and is tackled, 21 yards downfield, something like that. When if he hit Amari Cooper in stride, there's a chance that ball, that play goes for 40, 50, maybe even a touchdown. But it was a bad throw and an easy read with wide open windows, which is apparently the only way either of these two quarterbacks can complete a freaking pass. Now, the biggest difference between these two teams currently is their running game. The Browns are able to run the ball and run the ball effectively on every single down. The Steelers, for whatever reason, love to put Najee Harris in a situation that is not ideally suited for his skill set. What do I mean by that? Najee Harris is phenomenal in the open field. We see him running guys over, throwing guys with nasty stiff arms, leaping over people who are literally standing up vertically. Okay, this guy is a freak athlete and is so difficult to tackle in the open field. And so Matt Canada, knowing all of this information, decides to dive. And then he's confused why the Steelers are only getting 3.7 yards per carry with Najee Harris in the backfield. It's because you're not utilizing his skill sets. And the offensive line struggled last year. They're struggling again this year. And I don't understand how running the ball right up the middle on first, second, and third downs is going to be an effective strategy when that's Najee Harris's. It's not his skill set. His skill set is get him outside of the tackle box, and make a play in open field. But Matt Canada, and you know what? I'm not saying that I could call plays better than Matt Canada. This dude, you know what I mean? He's been around the block. He's in the NFL. He's doing his thing. And he's doing it wrong. But I'm just saying he needs to get Najee Harris moving outside. So, both of these teams are not going to play well. They're not going to do well for a large period of the season if they continue to do the things that they're doing right now. It's an unfortunate reality for both squads. They both have a lot of talent on the roster, but talent on paper really doesn't do shit for you in the NFL. I'm sorry to say it. I'm going to talk about the Chargers here in a little bit, and they're in the same boat. They have a great roster on paper. And then when they get on the field, everybody seems to just go, what the fuck do I do now? And it's a problem, and these teams have to start figuring it out and start play calling in a way that makes sense for their offense. And my final note on this game is that the Steelers really need their pass rusher, T.J. Watt. Without T.J. Watt, this defense just does not generate the same type of pressure. Their secondary is then taxed because their interior and edge rushers are not generating enough pressure against the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks are not, they have all day to throw the ball because nobody's scheming towards TJ Watt anymore. You don't have to double team this guy. You don't have to put a running back in pass pro. You don't have to do all these things to stop TJ Watt because he's not on the field. And, they don't have that reliance on, hey, you know what? It's cool if we don't have, a great offense because Mitch Trubisky sucks. Sorry about it. It wasn't all Matt Nagy's fault. Take that to my grave. But they don't have the ability to just rely on the defense to win them games. Now, I will make actually one more final point here. The Browns ended up winning 29-17, and the box score makes it seem like this was a wider margin victory than it really was. The last touchdown at the end of the game was on this busted, broken, fugazi play where, they lateraled it like 3 or 4 times, and then somebody fumbled in the end zone, and the Browns recovered. It was not a big win for the Browns in terms of margin of victory. It was a very low margin of victory game. They just ended up making less mistakes, and I think it really did come down to the play calling and their ability to run the ball, since the Steelers are just like, how do I call a run play? That's not to Jaylen Warren, an undrafted rookie free agent. Use Najee Harris like you've watched a game of football before. It's just me, though. Alrighty, the second game I'm going to talk about this week is the Texans versus the Bears. Now, this is a matchup that I really love to watch, and a lot of people, if anybody ever stumbles onto this, stupid little video, why? Why do you care about these two historically bad franchises, right? The Texans have never been good, ever, will never be good, ever. And the Bears have not been good since 1985. So why do you care so much about this matchup? Well, I grew up on the west side of Chicago, in the burbs, first town to the west. And after high school, moved to the north side. During college, I moved to the south side. Right, they're just my hometown team. And but I've never really been a fan. It's just they've sucked, and I just don't care about the Bears. But the Texans are my team. So I was about 5 years old. Picked up the first game of Madden and picked the coolest team based off of the logo or whatever. You know what I mean? And that was back when they had Derek Carr and Dominic Davis, Mario Williams, and they were just also terrible. But for probably a whole bunch of different reasons. I don't really remember too many games from back then. But the Bears ended up pulling out this Week 3 victory over the Texans, 23-20. If you're a Bears fan, don't celebrate. Your team is ass. Sorry about it. I'll explain why in a little bit. I want to get through why the Texans are ass first. First and foremost, the play calling makes me physically sick. Pep Hamilton is supposedly this guy who's an offensive guru. He's been around the block a bunch. He's done a lot of great work for a lot of great quarterbacks. But he's now the OC of the Houston Texans, and he really has no idea what the fuck he's doing play calling. I'm sorry. If you disagree, please let me know why. But we're running low percentage, short yardage plays on first and second down. I'm talking, dives up the middle, zone reads with bad offensive line play. Texans offensive line always has been bad. Not really seeing it get any better. But we're running hitch routes and out routes and slants and all of these things that are 3, 4, 5 yard gains. And then we're bamboozled while we're in these third and long situations where then we run a screen or hitch routes or something that goes also 4 or 5 yards when it's 3rd and 7. And then we punt and we're like, I wonder why we can't move the ball down the field. I mean, it makes me physically sick watching this happen. And I get that Mills is not a great quarterback. He's still making a lot of rookie mistakes into his second year, which is a really, really big problem. In all of these games the Texans have played through the first 3 weeks, we've lost 2, tied 1. The game is close in the fourth quarter, and Mills crumples. Just, oh my God. poor decision after poor decision, bad throw after bad throw. He's not checking out of any plays no matter what the defense is showing him. It's terrible. It's so bad. It is so bad. And it's unacceptable at this point. He was by far, and I mean by far, the best rookie quarterback last year. Don't fucking at me, okay? Mac Jones had a great season, yes, but he had offensive weapons around him. He had great coaching with Bill Belichick. It was just a better situation for Mac Jones to flourish. Last year, Davis Mills had nothing and nobody. There was nothing good that was going to come out of the Texans season, and yet he was mediocre. Yes, that's what we want to see. When you have nothing going on, you want to see mediocrity. Because you're not going to be able to elevate your team to where you're going to look like a superstar, where you're going to make this miraculous playoff run. It's not realistic. So what I wanted to see from him this year is be a step above mediocre. He's got just a little bit more help. He's got just a little bit more going for him, and he's performing worse. And it's bad. And it's bad. And it doesn't seem like it's going to get better. So we need to see Davis Mills elevate his game. Now, what we did see, though, was Dameon Pierce finally handle the rock much, much more. Because the first 2 weeks, it was a lot of Rex Burkhead. And if you know anything about football, when you have a bad roster, but you have a good rookie, you should absolutely not play the rookie for anything. No matter what. I don't care if you got a running back who's 33 years old and runs a 5.4 40, right? You play the veteran. What? And it didn't make any sense the first 2 weeks. So then they're like, oh, okay, well, let's play this rookie we keep touting about. And he plays really, really well. Now, he must have just rubbed butter or lamb grease or some shit all over his arms because he couldn't hold on to the ball to save his fucking life. He fumbled twice, both recovered by the Texans, so it wasn't like a big deal, but I don't know, maybe hold on to the ball once or twice. Just me, I guess. But he had a really good game. I don't want to take anything away from him. He looks like he's going to be really good. The fumbles need to go away. It's his first real test in the NFL, and it kind of started to make sense why Rex Burkhead in the week 1 tie against the Colts, why Rex Burkhead was in late in the game. He's very secure with the ball. He doesn't fumble a whole lot. And apparently Dameon Pierce loves to put the ball on the ground. Now the Bears situation. Wow, is this a dumpster fire as well? There is not a whole lot to be excited about for Bears fans, and here's why. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, you guys are nowhere closer to understanding whether or not Justin Fields is going to be your franchise quarterback. You're not there because you don't understand, not the fans, but the coaching staff doesn't understand that in order to accurately assess a quarterback, they need to throw the ball. I mean, I don't really understand what the strategy is. If you run it as much as they do, it's like 75% at this point. If you're going to run it this much, you have to have a much more dynamic running game. And your running game is only as good as your passing game because they play off of each other. And if you're going to run the ball so much, you have to do more RPOs. You have to do more play action. You have to draw the defense in and then hit them over the top so that they respect the passing game. And the Bears have thrown the ball 45 times in 3 games. And I get it. Context matters. The first game was monsooning in Chicago. I get it. You're not going to throw the ball a whole lot. Week 2 was against the Packers. You want to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. I get it. But also, don't you want to put up points? No? Okay. Well, good. It's a good thing we didn't pass the ball then. Good coaching? Play calling? I'm unsure, personally. I don't know what the game plan was. Let's keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, and let's make sure we don't score on offense. What? Now, the Bears are kind of going to struggle a lot now that David Montgomery's hurt. And not because David Montgomery is such an excellent running back. He's good. He's really good. He's a solid number 1 option. Khalil Herbert, I would say, is probably just as good as David Montgomery. And the tandem of those two is really, really solid. Now, I think they're very similar in terms of how they run, the types of runs they like. They're not huge pass catching threats out of the backfield. So I feel like they have a kind of similar play style. But this third back on the Bears roster, oh my God, it's like he was born in molasses. Like, this guy cannot run at all. I thought Rex Burkhead was slow. Holy shit, this Ebner guy, and I get it, he's a rookie, whatever. I think he might have even been an undrafted free agent. He should have stayed a free agent and undrafted. I'm sorry. But he's like the kickoff returner, and he's doing a whole lot of stuff. And this guy runs like a 640 flat. I mean, it's tough to watch this guy move. I mean, he's running slower than most of the offensive linemen out there. It's bad. It is bad. He looks so slow. So, I mean, you're going to have to rely a lot on Khalil Herbert since the Bears, all they do is run the ball. And I don't really blame them. They're showing that they have a lot of trust issues with Justin Fields. And while I do think that the Bears need to pass the ball significantly more, you're not going to make the playoffs anyway. You might as well just empty the chamber and see what you got at QB. But he's got a lot of inaccuracy issues deep down the field. You know, there was an interception he threw to Jalen Petrie, his first of two, where, you know, Cole Kmet, he's running down the middle of the field, and Fields just sails him. Just bad miss, just right over the top, like 5-10 yards. I mean, Kmet couldn't even leap up and like make an effort on the ball. It was so overthrown. So that's a problem. Then later in the game, they want to do something similar. You got Darnell Mooney running a seam route right down the right hash. He's in triple coverage, so you got a corner, I believe it was Desmond King, who's in trail technique right behind him. So Fields has to drop the ball up and over the shoulder of Darnell Mooney so that he can kind of basket catch it and keep it moving. He's probably not going to get too much farther once he makes the catch, but it at least puts him in a position to make a play on the ball and get some yards. However, there's a safety on the left hash, there's a safety on the right hash, and instead of Fields just throwing it over the top straight down the hash, he leads Darnell Mooney to the right over the top and overthrown, and Jalen Petrie just is on his normal progression trying to catch up to Mooney and just, oh, thanks, free gift, and off to the races he goes. So, you know, the Bears have a lot of problems, especially throwing the ball deep. Throwing the ball really in general seems to be a very big issue for the Bears. Fields needs to get more comfortable recognizing, reading NFL defenses. They have to put the ball in his hands more often. You're never going to know if Fields is a good football player if you don't let him play. Right? He catches snaps and he hands the ball off. That's all he does all game long. Get him to throw the ball. Get him more comfortable in the system. Get him more acclimated to reading NFL defenses at game speed. You have to do it. But last thing I'm going to say, both of these teams suck. Neither one's going to make the playoffs. Sorry about it. Alrighty, the next game I want to talk about is the Bills versus the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins ended up pulling this one out 21-19. They're legit, man. They are legit. Mike McDaniel's offense is awesome. It's so fun to watch. Now, it wasn't on like full display in this game. The Bills have a really, really solid defense. They were decimated in the secondary, so I'm not really willing to write the Bills off yet just because of one loss, especially against the Dolphins. You know, the Dolphins are really good. I think they're one of the better teams in the NFL, but I'm not ready to write the Bills off because of it. Now, I think it's so hilarious that narratives like Tua has the arm strength of a wet pool noodle are getting pushed so hard in the offseason. Media people do this all the time, and it is laughable because they're immediately proven wrong as soon as the season starts. And I'm going to talk about it with the Packers as well, how everybody was saying, oh, the Packers are dead because they don't have Devontae Adams. You clearly don't watch football and therefore should not have the platform or the ability to make such bullshit comments. Tua is the biggest example that I can think of right now. The fact that there was a legitimate narrative that Tua does not have NFL arm strength or arm talent is laughable. Laughable. You're not paying attention if this is something that you did believe or still believe. You're just not. This guy, he doesn't have the best arm strength. I'm not going to say that he's out there slinging it like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, those type of guys. He's not. But he's got a good arm. It's not that bad. There was he threw an absolute missile to Craycraft in the front of the end zone with about 7 minutes left in the second quarter against the Bills, and he just put that ball on a frozen rope right to where his guy could get it. It was in triple coverage, and he put the ball so fast on Craycraft that the defense didn't have the ability or the time to react. Please, if you think Tua does not have the arm strength to make it in the NFL, crumple that little idea up, put it in the garbage, set it on fire, and reevaluate how you watch football. Please, please, please. Anyway, the Dolphins' defense played really, really well. Melvin Ingram had a really rough 2 games to start the season, but he played really, really well, especially in the first half of this game. He had a sack, he had a fumble recovery, and then one-on-one in space in the red zone, 1 yard to go, he makes a great stop against Josh Allen. And if you have ever seen Josh Allen run, especially in the red zone, you know that is no small feat. The fact that he was able to stop Josh Allen in the red zone like that, I love to see it. Love to see it. He wasn't great, first 2 games, but he really made up for it, I think, in the first half of week 3. Now, the Bills did end up losing. Gabe Davis, their number 2 receiver, on a bit of a snap count. He didn't really see a whole lot of targets or a lot of touches just because he's not at 100%. So they, did a lot of cool things with Isaiah McKenzie. He went off. He had a really, really outstanding game. Really happy for him. The Bills' secondary was kind of decimated. Kyer Elam, he had a really good game. I don't remember the other undrafted, maybe a 6th-round draft pick. Corner, he was starting as well, rookie. He played really, really well. Micah Hyde is out, I think, for the season. I mean, it's going to be tough, but the Bills is the Bills, so I'm not too worried about it. Don't write off the Bills. Josh Allen is still an MVP front runner, and Tua's legit. Stop talking shit about my guy, Tua. All right, we got 3 more games to talk about. We're going to talk about the Bucs, Packers, Chargers, Jaguars, and the Niners against the Broncos. I don't have a ton to say about these 3 games in particular, mostly because I didn't really find them to be all that notable. We'll start off first with the Chargers-Jaguars. This is, I think, one of the most notable games in terms of NFL Week 3, not necessarily in the grand scheme of things in terms of the entire NFL like I think the Bucs-Packers game was. But for the Chargers-Jaguars, I wanted to see, because this was the first time, to be honest, I'd seen the Chargers or the Jaguars play all season. So I really want to know, is Doug Peterson for real and is Trevor Lawrence for real? Couldn't really gauge Trevor Lawrence last year. I think it would be very ignorant of me to say, you know what, he didn't really play all that well last year, so, he's a bust. We should write him off. Fuck it. Send him to the bin, right? Like, he was playing for Urban Meyer. And that guy had no clue how to run or coach an NFL team. No fucking clue. He had no business ever being in the building. It was bad. It was bad. And I'm not 100% ready to say Trevor Lawrence is the guy. He's the king. he's going to be in the conversation with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. He's not there yet. No matter what you think of how good he could be, he's not 100% there yet in my eyes. And I want to watch him continue to develop as the season goes. He played really, really well against the Chargers. And the Chargers are a good team. I mean, they're a legitimate team. Now, their defense was a little banged up. Joey Bosa didn't play the majority of the game, which really did hurt the Chargers defense, very similarly to the way TJ Watt not playing with the Steelers really impacted the Steelers' ability to get after the quarterback. I think the same thing is true about the Chargers. Now, of course, they still have Khalil Mack, but having that dynamic duo of the both of them really messes things up for offenses and offensive lines. So only having to deal with one of those guys, Chargers' hands were kind of tied there. But I think, James Robinson is still legit. He's still the guy. Travis Etienne, he's kind of hit or miss, more of a receiving threat in my personal opinion out of the backfield, but would love to see him with a little bit more touches. Christian Kirk, I mean, this guy signed a massive deal after being mediocre his entire career to this point. And he's showing that as a number one receiver, he's not really that bad of an option. I mean, he's getting legitimate targets, legit catches, contested balls. He's doing everything, and he's doing really, really well. The Jacksonville Jaguars are legit. They're legit. Sorry about it. It sucks. They're AFC South. I love the AFC South, and by I love the AFC South, I mean I hate everybody except the Texans. So it's a little bit challenging watching the Jaguars succeed and go, wow, this is good. This is good. But, good football is good football. So I'm just kind of rocking with it. Now, the Chargers, I'm a little bit concerned about the Chargers, and I have been for 2 years. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but they haven't proved shit to anybody. They have only proven that they have a good roster on paper. They haven't put it all together. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. I think injuries have a really big thing to do with that. Derwin James was in and out last year a bunch. The receiving core seems to never be healthy. If Mike Williams is healthy, Keenan Allen's not healthy, vice versa. You're seeing guys like DeAndre Carter, who's the fifth receiver on this team, getting legitimate minutes, legitimate play count. He's the return man. Get him in fantasy. I'll talk about it in a little bit here. But man, the Chargers have to put it all together. And I'm curious. I want to watch the all-22 version of this game because I'm very curious to see how badly the Chargers quarterback, Justin Herbert, how bad his injury to his ribcage is. I'm really nervous about that. He had a couple really, really good throws, one in particular where he's scrambling all the way out to his right and he heaves the ball crossbody down the field like 30 yards, 40 yards to Jalen Guyton. Absolute bomb. There's only like 3-4 quarterbacks in the league who can do that, and maybe not even that many. So he's still got all the intangibles. He's still great. But I'm very curious, how badly is that injury really impacting him? And I apologize, I kicked the camera. It's my first time, obviously. Now, the other game I wanted to talk about right now is the Bucs-Packers. So the Bucs, they ended up losing. They made it a tight game at the end. Final score is 14-12. I'm concerned about the Bucs as well. It seems like I'm concerned about everybody. Because, man, we're not seeing a ton of great football out of the teams we traditionally expect to be great. These Tom Brady-led offenses, we just assume, hey, this is going to be one of the top point-scoring offenses. Hey, the defense is always going to be in it, and, the team's going to be great. They're not really playing up to it. And I get it. Chris Godwin's out. Evans is out. Julio Jones was out. The receiving core is decimated. All of these things, I get it. So are the Packers. Packers found a way to win. So I'm just nervous. But having said all that, I think we really need to appreciate Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, and even to a certain degree Matt Ryan, as they continue to play in the NFL. This is a sentiment that I've started to kind of really pick up on and really like dive a little bit more into and really believe more wholeheartedly that we just need to appreciate the fact that these guys are still out there, still slinging the rock around and playing for championships. I mean, they're really still pushing to do it, and it's a sentiment that I was really turned on to by Zach Schaumler, Strong Opinion Sports. Go check him out because I mean, it's just these guys have been playing for so long at such a high level. This may legitimately be the last time Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady share the field together. This is probably Tom Brady's last season in the NFL. He's more than likely going to retire, in my opinion. Aaron Rodgers, he's going to keep going, but we'll see how long. Really appreciate these great quarterbacks while they're still playing. Recently, we've lost Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, all these major marquee quarterbacks over the past 20 years. Seen them all kind of leave and move on and go on to do other things, and Tom Brady's probably next to go, and Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan after that. So really appreciate them while we still got them. That's really all I got to say about that. So as I'm watching back a couple of these clips that I've already filmed and everything like that, I'm sure you've noticed a bunch of cuts. I just realized my camera can only record for 7 minutes at a time, so that's super cool, I guess. But one of the things that I didn't talk about when I had sort of originally filmed that Packers Bucks was I left out the narrative that the Packers were going to be this terrible team this year, and how hilarious it is that media people, media professionals who are supposedly experts on the sport in which they cover continue to push narratives that make no sense because one player leaves, an entire team is going to be awful. And Aaron Rodgers, who is this Hall of Fame quarterback, who's won back-to-back MVPs, is suddenly going to be terrible because he doesn't have a wide receiver. Are you fucking kidding me? This is your profession, and you're out here on national TV? Packers are dead, man. They suck. You're so wrong. You're so wrong. These rookie receivers are not only really explosive and really talented, but they have the benefit of being coached by Matt LaFleur, offensive genius, and a two-time back-to-back MVP winner, and really he's a three-time MVP winner. He just won it back-to-back the last 2 years. These guys are going to learn so much quicker what it takes to be an NFL receiver, and I think that does them a lot of service. I mean, they're going to do really, really well. Romeo Doubs had 8, 9, 10 catches. I started him in every single one of my fantasy leagues because, duh. I mean, the guy's good. What do you want me to do? Randall Cobb still has it in him. I mean, that he had just like a tunnel route. It was a tunnel screen. He just catches the ball and he fakes so hard that he's going to go to the sideline. He ends up juking two guys by just twisting his spine. He gets like a 20-yard, 25-yard gain right down the numbers. I mean, he's a savvy vet. What do you expect the guy to do? And he's going to be on the same page as Aaron Rodgers throughout the entire season. Romeo Doubs is going to get on the same page. He's going to get up there. The Packers are not going to be a bad team simply because they lost a receiver. Did we make the same fuss when they lost Jordy Nelson? And if we did, why are we not paying attention to what history has said? Aaron Rodgers is good. The Packers have been good for years. They're not just going to stop because they miss one guy. Make it make sense. You can't. You can't. As soon as the season starts, all of these off-season narratives that people are just pulling out of their asses because they don't know what else they're supposed to talk about. Fair, I get it, but they're bullshit. And every year, everybody buys into these narratives, and Twitter goes crazy, and we all say, "Oh my God, the Packers are dead, and Tua can't throw a slant route. He's so bad." And then you get into the season, you go, "Oh yeah, no, none of that was true." Oh, Oops. So the Jaguars played the Chargers this week, and it was kind of an interesting game because the Jags like blew out the Chargers. I don't really think anybody saw that coming out of the Chargers. It didn't seem like going into that game the Jaguars were going to be able to pull that one out. Now, of course, Chargers didn't have Keenan Allen, and Joey Bosa got hurt pretty early in that game. And very similarly with the Steelers' defense, the Chargers really need their playmakers to be playing on the defensive line like Joey Bosa. Now, the Chargers have done this the past 2 years where they start off not so hot, or they just don't have the record that you would expect a team of this caliber on paper to have. And that makes me very nervous. And I'm also really nervous to see how bad that Justin Herbert injury is. I don't really know. I want to see the all 22 version of this game because I want to see the impact that injury is having on Justin Herbert. Now, he had a play where it didn't really look like it was affecting him too much. He had rolled out to the right and threw crossbody across the whole field on a deep ball to Jalen Guyton, and they connected there. But, how much is that injury really affecting Justin Herbert? And can the Chargers have sustained success enough to take them over the hump and get into the playoffs? They've struggled doing so 2 years in a row now. Will they be able to figure it out this year? I don't know. Now, the Jaguars look really good. I came in really looking to understand, is Trevor Lawrence good? His first year with Jacksonville, he was with Urban Meyer, and that was such a mess. I don't really even want to get into it. Urban Meyer is absolutely not a professional. He does not belong in the men's league. Doesn't belong in any league, in my opinion, based on how he behaved, and a lot of character concerns with that guy. But I really want to judge Trevor Lawrence on this year's performance. How does he perform with the new additions, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, right? They got a lot of playmakers. They got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense is really strong too. And now that he's in this Doug Peterson offense, how well can he really rise? I'm not 100% sure. I haven't seen enough of Trevor Lawrence to make my final opinion on him. It's not like he's Daniel Jones, where we've had 4, 5, 6 seasons of watching this guy just not play well. We've only seen one. He played all right with a pretty bad situation, especially given his head coach. Now that he seems to be in a really good situation with Doug Peterson, they're already 2-1 on the season. Can they continue to make those strides and make a deep playoff push? I'm not really sure. In my opinion, they are a top 12 team right now at the end of week 3. But we'll get more into that when we talk about my power rankings closer to the end of the video. But, Jags blew out the Chargers. I don't really have too much more to say about that. It was just really, really interesting. Zay Jones and Christian Kirk seem like the guys over there. And, it was really kind of fun to see the Jags actually perform, well. I mean, it's something we haven't seen a lot of in recent memory, and I hope they can continue to do it because somebody in the AFC South has to start showing that we're not just a wasted division. I mean, we are a waste of a division, but maybe the Jags can prove that we're not. I don't know. So the last game we're going to talk about today for NFL Week 3 is the Broncos at the 49ers. I don't have a ton to say about this game. Russell Wilson and the Broncos, they're still figuring it out. They won 11-10 over the Niners, where Jimmy G, this is the second game of the season. He didn't have any offseason with the Niners. He's coming off of a shoulder surgery. He's not on the same page as everybody. Their running backs are all injured. Who gives a shit that the Broncos won? They didn't look good. The Niners didn't look good, but I think with Jimmy G, they have a better chance of winning over a Trey Lance-led team. I just don't think Trey Lance is there yet. I don't think he's ready to start. And people always want to claim, like these media people who cover the NFL, they always want to crown people and claim that they know which quarterbacks are going to be successful right out of the gate. And they don't. But people buy into it year after year, and I'm sick of it. Trey Lance is a phenomenal athlete. So is Jamarcus Russell. Let's wait till we watch them play before we say Trey Lance is a must-pick in every fantasy league. Wait. Give the guy time to develop, to learn the NFL, the speed of the game, to get accustomed to an offense, an NFL-level offense. This guy played at North Dakota State, a D2 school. He played no great colleges, no great defenses. He didn't play in a great offense. He relied so heavily on his legs in college. He never had to face such intense adversity through this point in his career, and now he's not going to have played for 2 full NFL seasons, and he's going to come back next year. I'm worried about the Niners. In terms of this year, I think Jimmy G is going to give them a good chance to make a playoff push. I think they're a fringe top 12 team. I don't think the Broncos are as of yet, as they still try to figure everything out. Jimmy G's been in this offense before. It's not going to take him too long to get into the rhythm of the game. He said that he can now play like he's got nothing to lose. Realistically, he doesn't. He's going to be out of the Bay Area at the end of this year anyway. I think, unfortunately for him, I do think he's the better player over Trey Lance. Now, the one thing I really did want to talk about really about this game is Nathaniel Hackett. Now, I'm really starting to root for this guy because in the first 2 weeks, every NFL fan watching from home is thinking, this guy sucks at managing a game. He just doesn't know how to do it. And I don't blame him because he went from being the offensive coordinator or quarterback's coach or something like that on the Packers. I'm not 100% sure if I'm being honest because I'm a sports doofus and just a complete and utter moron. But he went from a role where all he had to do was focus on calling plays. He gets into the head coaching role in Denver, and he's got so much more on his plate so fast and no experience doing it. And what I really like is that he said, I'm not good at game managing. I don't know what I'm doing yet. That's fine. That's cool. I'm still a good head coach, and I'm going to do what I need to do to put my team in a position to win. And so he brings in Jerry Rosburg to manage the game. Genius. He said, my ego is not what matters here. Winning games is what matters here. And I'm losing us games because I don't know how to game manage because I'm still calling plays and I'm roped in on the defense and I got more things to worry about than just when to use a timeout. So he brings in Jerry Rosburg, and I think that's awesome. He knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, and he's not going to let his ego get in the way of winning games. That's somebody I want to root for. I like that guy. I think the Broncos are in a better spot now that he's realized this than they were before. So that's perfect. That's perfect. Now, I do want to talk about the power rankings that I have. I don't like to follow, NFL experts' power rankings. I think they're largely based on rosters on paper as well as records. I'm not going to pay attention to that. So I'm going to do a top 12 power ranking. Now, if anybody actually ends up watching this video, which I highly doubt anybody will, I bet you're going to ask, well, why a top 12 power ranking? There's 32 teams in the NFL. You're right, but only 12 teams make the playoffs, so there's only really 12 teams in the NFL. The other 20 don't really fucking matter in the grand scheme of the season and making a Super Bowl push, which is what the season's all about. So I'm doing a top 12. Number 1 is the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, Nick Sirianni is doing a great job. Jalen Hurts, I don't know how you could root against this guy. He is the hardest worker on the team. He's the leader of the team. They bring in A.J. Brown. They're giving the ball to Miles Sanders. Devonta Smith is doing his thing. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Eagles number 1. Number 2 is the Miami Dolphins. They just took down the Bills. I had them ranked a little bit lower, I think like 7 or 8 last week. Of course, I didn't have an episode last week, so just kidding. I had them at number 2 all last week. But they took down the Bills. Their offense looks great. Tua looks great. And they're 3-0. So 3 wins, no losses. I'm loving it. Eagles, same thing, 3-0. Now the Bills, I'm going to put at number 3 because Bills is the Bills. They lost to the Dolphins. So right now I have the Dolphins as the better team of the 2, simply because they already played and showed that they were the better team that day. So I'm rocking with the Dolphins, and I might switch that up next week. I might not. Who's to say? At number 4, we got Baltimore. Lamar Jackson is going to get paid. My God, he's going to get paid. I'm here for it. He's crushing it. Number 5, I got the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is going to do what Aaron Rodgers does. That's win games. They're not always going to be blowouts. They're not always going to be the sexiest plays. They're not going to be the sexiest games. They're not going to be the sexiest wins. But you know who's going to walk away with more wins than the next guy? It's going to be Aaron Rodgers. He's going to find a way to win. It's what he does. Number 6, I got the Chiefs. They lost to the Colts. Mahomes had a really late interception that kind of sealed the game. I didn't watch the whole game, but they got to figure it out a little bit. They're 2-1 to start the season. They're still really good. They're in top tier contention, as they should be, and as they always will be, I think. But a loss to the Colts, who have struggled through the first 2 weeks, we can't have that. I mean, they tied with the fucking Texans, for God's sakes, and then you're going to lose to them. That makes me nervous. Number 7 is Minnesota. Minnesota's legit. So are the Lions. That's why I have the Vikings up so high, because the Lions are in dogfights every single game, and Kirk Cousins finally is proving that the moment is not too big for him. At least it wasn't in week 3. Let's hope more of that, please. Number 8, we got the Bucs. The injury woes are a little bit concerning for me. Hopefully they get that figured out and the offense starts humming, because their defense is flying around and doing the things that the defense does. So I'm really excited about that. Number 9 is the Rams. The Rams is the Rams. They're not as good, I think, as last year, or at least to start off the season, they're not as good. Hopefully they get back to that playoff form, because they're really fun to watch. Number 10 is Jacksonville. I didn't have them in the top 12 last week, but they've snuck their way in after beating the Chargers. They look really, really good. Doug Peterson wants that Super Bowl, and they're going all in, and I'm loving it. Trevor Lawrence, keep doing your thing, bro, and let's do it. Chargers at 11, great team on paper. Herbert and Bosa injuries are what concerns me. Keenan Allen should be back. I thought he was supposed to be back this week, since the only reason he didn't play on Thursday last week was because it was a short week. But it's been a week and a half since, and he didn't play this week. So that makes me nervous. And number 12 is the 49ers. Like I said, they're on the fringe. I'm putting them here just because Trey Lance is not the starter. Jimmy G is going to come in. He's going to get reacclimated to the offense, and he's going to help them make a playoff push. And those are the top 12 power rankings for week 3. We got 2 more topics until the end of this episode. First one, I'm going to be talking a little bit about fantasy football. I'm going to do on my Monday/Tuesday episodes, whenever the video actually comes out. Who knows? It's my first time doing it. I'm going to talk about waivers, who you need to be targeting for NFL Week 4. And then on the Thursday/Friday episode, I will be talking about start and sit in terms of who on your roster you should be playing and who on your roster you probably should not be playing. So we're going to hop right into it. Go get Khalil Herbert. I highly doubt he's on waivers in any league, but if you're maybe in a smaller 8-man league, he might be in some waivers. Go pick him up. He's now the lead back in Chicago. It's a no-brainer. Duh. Jalen Warren, he's the number 2 back in Pittsburgh, and they seem to know how to get him in space. So you should probably go get him. Isaiah McKenzie in Buffalo, they're passing the ball. I mean, they literally threw the ball 63 times against the Dolphins. And this is their number 3 receiver. Duh. Go get him. What are we talking about? Mac Hollins, with Hunter Renfrow out, he's demanding target share. The Raiders staff is really high on this guy, and he had a monster game. Go pick up Mac Hollins. Zay Jones. I wish I put out an episode last week because he was my pick last week for must-have fantasy football waiver guy. I picked him up in all 5 of my fantasy football leagues, and he had a monster game. He's the number 2 receiving threat in Jacksonville. Go pick him up. He's still probably on waiver wires. Everybody on Twitter, I'm sure, is screaming, go get Zay Jones. Go get Zay Jones. You got DeAndre Carter as well. He's the 5th guy in the Chargers receiving room, and he's still commanding threats. He's been a reliable target for Justin Herbert thus far this season, and he's their return man. He's going to get targets, he's going to get touches, and he's going to get yards and get fantasy points. So in deeper leagues especially, he might be a super flex option, a good depth guy for when Keenan Allen or Mike Williams or whoever inevitably gets hurt like they do every single year. Unfortunately, really don't want these guys to get hurt. Obviously, I'm not a scumbag, but DeAndre Carter is getting snaps and he's getting touches. So he should be on your team, especially if you're in a deeper league. Now, I do want to make this point here. Notice how there were 4 receivers and 2 running backs. And next year, if the podcast or the show or whatever you want to call it is still going, then I'm going to do some fantasy football drafting tips. And I'm going to tell you then what I'm going to tell you now. Stop prioritizing running backs, especially in PPR leagues. People thought I was fucking crazy last year. People are going to think I'm crazy this year, and you're going to think I'm crazy next year, but I'm not. As the running back position in the NFL as a whole stops being what it was, where there's a one traditional bell cow back who's going to get the majority of the touches out of the backfield, including receptions, since the NFL is shifting away from that and it's moving to a more running back by committee, the running backs are getting less touches in general in the NFL. So what does that mean for fantasy football? They're getting less touches. You wouldn't think I would have to explain that, especially in a PPR league, you want to prioritize the people who are catching the ball over the running back by committee. But apparently, I'm going to have to do it until I'm blue in the face, and I'm just going to keep winning my fantasy football leagues until everybody else realizes that no shit, you should be stacking up on wide receivers. Every single year, more and more NFL-ready rookie wide receivers are stepping into the NFL. Every single year. Garrett Wilson, Drake London this year, already. Chris Olave had a monster game. If you're not prioritizing the wide receivers, you're going to just keep losing your fantasy football leagues, and you're going to scratch your head and go, why? But I had all the running backs. Ditch them. Fuck them. Who needs them? I had Joe Mixon, who got me 4.7 points, and Aaron Jones, who got me 5 points, and I still win my fantasy football leagues because I'm prioritizing the correct positions. It's the ones who catch the ball, the receivers. Go get them. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is my challenge for the rest of the year. Now, I'm going to be doing this. Nobody has to join this challenge with me, mostly because nobody's going to watch this video, obviously. But what I'm going to do moving forward is I'm going to clear out my FanDuel account. And by clear out, I mean I lost all of my bets because I suck and I'm a moron. And I'm going to put $10 in. And every single week, I'm going to bet every single cent in my fantasy football account. And we're going to see how long I can make it before I completely run out of money. This could be a 1-week challenge. I could ride all the way past the Super Bowl and have a little bit of extra cash in my account. I won't. Let's just be honest. I can't bet for shit. But we're going to dive into the FanDuel Sportsbook, find the best bets with the best value, and hopefully make, any amount of money. I have none. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that has been Shield Sports Talk, Episode 1. Really appreciate it if you stuck around to the end of the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Tell me I'm a fucking idiot if you think I'm an idiot. You're right if you think that. But, explain why, challenge some of my opinions. I'd love to learn more. Everything I do, I always try to learn a little bit more so that the next time I make an opinion, it's informed and it makes sense. So appreciate you sticking around. Have a great rest of your day.